Welcome to Forensic Friday,
where we examine the intersection of true crime, psychology, and the heart of being human in the middle of it all. Hello, friend.
Girl, I'm pissed.
Why are you pissed?
Because I think I'm getting sick.
I know you're not allowed to just say no. Say no. Gare got sick, and I said, no, ma'am, we're not doing this. And I didn't get sick. Knock on
I
wood.
wonder if some of that steroid was like still swimming in your veins when that happened.
I don't think so. Because it was last week.
Oh,
Yeah, he got real sick last week. He missed some work. He never misses work.
dang.
And Mac had it too, and your girl just powered through. I'm just not doing it.
Impressed. Well, maybe I got it through proxy. I don't know.
I hope not. Also, though, when you're pregnant, your nose swells, your sinuses, like everything swells. That might be part of it.
No, I mean, I've had that before, but this is not, this is like in my throat.
This feels sicky.
Yeah, I'm not thrilled.
Hopefully, you'll sleep good tonight since you didn't sleep last night.
Yeah,
You know,
I might be in the guest room just so I can like starfish.
I know sometimes we have to starfish. It's my favorite. Well, we're going to continue our journey down Bad Mom's Lane
I love this
tonight.
for
Yes.
us.
We had Ruby Frankie, we had Jody Hildebrand, and all their nonsense. So why not throw Lori Daybell Vallow in the mix
I
too?
love that. It's
Right?
perfect.
I know. So I have kind of an interesting outline. I'm not sure what order we're going to want to go in, but I have kind of a little bit of a thought process. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. Okay.
You're better at outlining than me, but I have good info.
I
And-
would love that.
okay. The case we're doing is Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell. And I
Okay.
would just like to say Chad is Lori's fifth husband for what it's worth.
I think that's important to know.
It's so, I mean, it just sets you off. Like, what's your first thought when you hear that someone's been married 5 times?
Not great.
What about if you know that their faith background is LDS and they've been married 5 times?
Also not great.
Yeah, it's just a lot. It's a lot right there. Just that, like one sentence. There's
I
a lot
mean,
to unpack.
Ruby Frank was only married once and it wasn't great.
Right. Imagine 5 times.
No.
And she started when she was 19.
Oh
So,
gosh.
yeah. So I'm going to back up a little.
Okay.
This couple, Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell, led a Mormon religious group described in the media as a doomsday cult. They were part
Oh.
of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but their
Mhm.
beliefs deviated from mainstream Mormonism. So that's really important because we've done 2 cases now that were like loosely affiliated with LDS. I
Mhm.
just want to say any religion, any faith background taken to the extremes can be like this. So this is
Yeah.
not like a Mormon problem. This is a
Yeah.
humankind problem.
Like when it turns into a culty issue, then we got issues.
Yeah, and anything can turn culty,
Yeah.
And so, I mean, yoga, and literally anything taken to the extremes can turn into this kind of high control group situation.
Yeah.
However, I don't think these guys had much of a group. So I'll come back to that. I think they were kind of a party of two for what it's worth, maybe 3 at times. Basically, in this belief system that they kind of started to develop, Chad, who was also an apocalyptic author, and you know how I feel about Chads. Some are okay, but a lot of them are not. The name Chad to me is a tiny bit of a red flag. I have known some good Chads, though.
And I was gonna say, I don't know if I've met a bad Chad. I just
All the
see
Chads I've met, except for 1 or 2, are bad.
I just see like the bad Chads on TV.
And it is always like a Chad.
On TV?
Yeah, it's a thing. Well, that's also a thing in incel culture. Anyway, maybe we'll do a whole episode on Chads at some point. The highs and lows of Chads.
Perfect.
Yeah. So Chad was an apocalyptic author. He was claiming to have visions of the future and that he lived through multiple lives and prophesied that the world would end by July of 2020.
Huh.
Lori found out about his stuff. She started to share his same beliefs and became convinced she was a deity destined to play a role in the coming apocalypse. and that her
Oh,
family was getting in the way of her mission.
okay.
This is why when this case broke, the media dubbed her the Doomsday Mom.
Okay.
She's a nightmare. So here's my question. Why do you think so many of these situations where people go off the rails, they don't see any problem with being so important? Like, how did you become the lightning rod of the apocalypse?
Like, why do I think they do it?
Yeah, why does that happen? Because, okay, we talked about Johari window, right?
Yeah.
If somebody comes to me and they say, I am a deity for the apocalypse, I'm going to be like, you're not my people.
Hmm.
And if I'm wrong, I'll take it up with people later, but I really don't like your chances that you are the lightning rod of the apocalypse.
No.
Also, if I had a dream, oh my God, I have to tell you a story.
What?
Okay, when it's so funny. I'll try to not share all the details, but it was wild. So I went to a small group one
O-
time.
Okay.
Okay. And
How
there was
old were you? Like college?
no, it was before Mac.
Okay.
Before Mac. So we were like, I don't know, 28, 29, something like that, like pushing 30.
Okay.
Okay. So I go to this small group and there was this guy there. A couple of our friends were leading it. Garrett and I were not like super joiny. Like we don't do that lightly. Okay. So we go and it's like the first time this group meets. Okay.
Okay.
One of the guys in the group looks at us and I shit you not. He goes, I've had visions of the apocalypse.
Oh no.
I was like, get me out of here. I'm holding
No.
Garrett's arm and I'm like, listen, I'm gonna run out the front door. I don't do this. I don't talk to the people who believe this kind of stuff. This is not my
Not my
area.
thing. Yeah.
Garrett decides, oh, I'm here to play. This is always Garrett. Garrett just does not hang with this kind of stuff. He will push back.
Uh-huh.
So I'm asking open-ended questions because I'm an uncomfortable therapist, and that's what we do when we're uncomfortable. I'm like, well, when was the dream? And blah blah blah. And it was like October. The world's gonna end in October, and it's skeletons, and it's all this crap, you
Okay.
know, weird stuff, spiritual weird stuff. And he thinks it's been revealed to him and only him.
Okay.
So then I'm going down, well, what makes you so important that this would be
Hmm.
revealed to you and not say me, right? Like, how
Mm-hmm.
come nobody else knows this is happening? I'm asking these questions. It gets so awkward because Garrett's just like, yeah, it makes no sense. And then he started talking about all these things. And this is the same group of people that had recommended a certain church for us. And this pastor gets up and starts talking about light and the physics of light and how that has something to do with God. I don't know. It was a whole thing. I stopped paying attention. It was
Oh
very
no.
scientific. Garrett looks at me. He whispers in my ear, none of what he just said is true. That makes no sense. And I was like, damn it, because Garrett's real smart.
Uh-huh.
And he actually knows about those things, right?
Uh-huh.
But this whole church of people are just like, uh-huh, like that's so good. Yeah, that's really profound, you know?
Oh
And they're
no.
like dying because that's just not science. So,
Oh no.
anyway, long story short, I have been in the presence of someone who thought that they had special knowledge about the apocalypse.
Love this.
And so Garrett decided to be the mechanism by which this person got some feedback
Okay.
so that he no longer had this blind spot. I don't know if it worked or not, but Garrett took it upon himself. Super
Love that.
awkward. We never met again.
Love that.
Not one time. In and out.
What church was it? Garrett can cut it out.
I can't say. It was Denver.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
The funny thing was, I think it was like in the summer and October was coming. And so literally the day he said it was going to happen, I can't remember what day it was. Garrett and I got up and go, I wonder how he's doing today.
Oh my gosh. He's
Like what?
probably
And that's another question I have later for you. It's like, what happens when the thing doesn't happen? Chad had these apocalyptic thoughts, thought everything was going to end in July of 2020. He's one of the only people who know it. And Joe and Lori is a deity and is
okay.
going to play a role in this coming thing, right? Okay.
Hmm.
How this became a thing is basically her children went missing and it hit the media and it was a big kerfuffle.
Yes.
So her daughter, Tylee Ryan, age 16, and adopted son, Joshua Jackson, JJ
Yeah.
Vallow, age 7, disappeared on September 9th and September 22nd, respectively, in 2019.
Hmm.
Now, that's just when they were last seen. We don't actually know when they disappeared. We just know when they were last seen.
Right.
In late November of 2019, police started questioning Lori about JJ's whereabouts. This is a 7-year-old kid. You should know where they are.
Yeah.
And she and Chad abruptly left their homes in Idaho and went to Hawaii.
Okay.
As police are looking for JJ, they realize Tylee's missing too.
Oh no.
Okay. And Lori and Chad are like not talking to law enforcement. They're refusing to sit down, do interviews, any of that. And so the media gets wind of it and it becomes a massive case.
Okay.
So as people are digging into this case, they realize a couple of things. The children disappeared after Lori's previous husband, Charles Vallow, died under suspicious circumstances. In addition, Chad's wife, Tammy Daybell, suspiciously died after the children disappeared. So her husband died under suspicious circumstances before they
Okay.
disappeared. His wife died under suspicious circumstances after
Uh-huh.
the children disappeared. Someone also attempted to murder Lori's niece's husband, Brandon Boudreaux, around
Okay.
this same time. The other thing that was highly weird is Lori and Chad married only 2 weeks after Tammy's death. So once the children's disappearances became more known and they got search warrants and everything, they decide to exhume Tammy's body, and law enforcement realizes she died by asphyxiation.
Oh no.
Uh-huh. You've got a lot of you have 2 missing children and 2 dead adults, one who I believe was shot,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh. The other adult was asphyxiation?
Well, one of the adults, Chad's wife Tammy, died from asphyxiation, and they literally exhumed her body and examined it and realized, oh,
He choked. Well,
she
someone
was,
strangled her.
yes.
I mean, they did it. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, it's one body too many. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Your kids are missing and then there's 2 dead ex-spouses.
yeah.
Like, I don't know what people are thinking when they think that they're going to get away with this stuff, to be honest.
Well, I don't either. It just makes literally no sense.
Yeah.
No sense. But it gets interesting. So in February of 2020, Lori gets arrested for desertion and non-support of the children because they didn't have remains yet. So she gets arrested basically because she can't explain to anybody where her children went.
Okay.
Their remains were found on June 9th in 2020 in Rexburg, Idaho, buried on property owned by Chad. So then they arrest Chad. Chad was arrested on charges of destruction or concealment of evidence. And then on May 25th, 2021, so a year later, and they were incarcerated during that time. So they didn't like get to go home. They picked them up and kept them. On May 25th, 2021, Lori and Chad were both charged with first-degree murder
Mm,
for the death of Tylee, JJ, and Tammy.
dang.
Prosecutors said the couple worked with Alex Cox, Lori's brother, to commit the murders, not only as part of their apocalyptic beliefs, but also, why do people kill people, Nat?
For many reasons.
Life insurance.
Oh, yeah, duh.
Insurance 2020.
I was like, I don't know, a lot of reasons, but
There's
yes,
so many reasons.
adults kill their spouses for sure for life
Oh,
insurance.
absolutely. So basically, they were trying to continue their affair, collect life insurance, and the children's social security benefits.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Uh-huh. Okay. Want to know a little more about these knuckleheads?
Of course.
Of course. So I channeled you. I got a little bit of background.
Yay.
Yay.
I
They're
love
so
background.
exciting. They're honestly kind of fascinating in some ways because I can sort of see how they got off the rails. The other thing
Yeah.
that's interesting is this all was leading up to COVID.
Uh-huh.
So the thing that's so interesting to me is they got arrested. She got arrested February 20th of 2020. The world locked down the next month. She probably was like, "Oh my God, it's happening and I'm in jail." Like I
I
can't.
remember when all this was happening too. It was crazy.
Oh, I do too. I mean, everyone was just sitting home watching the news. That's why she got
Yeah.
dubbed the doomsday mom and everybody was kind of fascinated by it. Like,
Yeah.
where'd your kids go, lady? And why
Yeah.
aren't you worried about it? She was not worried.
Oh, there was like no concern for her. It was
She didn't
wild.
even try to act. But in fairness to her, she thought that she was a deity and things were almost over anyway. So why
Yeah,
talk
like
about
why
it?
did it matter?
Apparently it didn't.
Oh my gosh.
So Chad Daybell was born in Provo, Utah,
Okay.
to a Mormon family. He attended BYU. He did his 2-year mission in New Jersey, and then he graduated BYU with a degree in journalism. He married Tammy Douglas in 1990, and they had 5 children together.
Jeez.
He worked, you can't make this stuff up. He worked as a copy editor for a time, but at various points while he was writing and he was editing, he worked as a gravedigger at a cemetery in town. A gravedigger. This is like literally his resume. It's like writer, gravedigger.
And then killer. Anyway,
Yeah,
continue.
yeah, we got to add murderer to that list too.
Yeah.
He wrote several apocalyptic religious themed novels, and he and his wife founded Spring Creek Book Company in 2004. So he could self publish his books with his beliefs regarding the end times and other religion themed books for the LDS audience.
Okay.
But as you might imagine, that's not that big of an audience. Like it's an audience, but it's a pretty specific audience.
Yeah.
So by the end of the 2000s, they were having financial problems. Their annual income from the book company was $2,000.
Jeez.
So they worked part-time jobs to supplement that income. Chad decides he's going to be a cemetery sexton. I didn't know that's what a gravedigger was called. I do now.
Okay.
Cemetery sexton, gravedigger.
Fun.
Yeah. He ultimately was able to salvage his company and found an audience with people who were concerned about the second coming of Jesus. He became
Okay.
really popular in radical Mormon circles, and he published dozens of fiction and nonfiction books by himself, but also by other authors he started to connect with.
Okay.
Some of the recurring themes were supernatural voices giving instructions and advice to him or characters. He claimed to have 2 near-death experiences that allowed him to receive visions of a supernatural nature. And this was a quote from him: "My torn veil, like the veil between like this world and whatever,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
my
yeah.
torn veil allows information to be downloaded into my brain from the other side. The scenes I'm shown are real events that will happen."
Huh.
He became more and more extreme over time, and his former brother in law, which was Tammy's sister's husband,
Okay.
recalled his views changing a lot, like 2006 to 2007. And he starts to prepare himself for the end times. He thought there would be earthquakes, war, and destruction in America.
Okay.
He also starts publishing with a self proclaimed clairvoyant, Julie Rowe. Both had connections to the spirit world and are popular among preppers.
Hmm.
And if you know anything, if you know any good Mormons, they always have like food and stuff too.
Right.
Right? I mean, this is a little bit of a theme is they are prepared. That's like part of their thing. It's a cultural thing too.
Yes.
Not necessarily doomsday, but it's just like kind of a cultural value. They're sort of ready for whatever, you know?
Right.
They began considering grouping people in tent cities to prepare for and await doomsday together. So now it's starting to get culty.
Okay.
Some people began to be concerned about his dangerous beliefs. In 2015, he heard a voice tell him to move to Rexburg, Idaho. So they moved there. He had visions that Utah would be devastated by an earthquake in 2015. So here's my question. When that doesn't happen, the earthquake doesn't come, everything doesn't go up in smoke, whatever,
Right.
why don't people deviate from this belief system? They just like shift gears. But okay, when we work with somebody who is having delusions, We
Right.
don't directly confront the delusion because they tend
No.
to get very upset and
Yes.
destabilized, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
we work with them to maybe become compliant with their medications, and then this stuff dies down a little bit.
Yep.
The world is confronting these delusions. There's not a person saying you're an idiot, but like
Right.
the world doesn't end
Right.
when these people say it will. What do you think is the impact to somebody, and why don't they like change their tune?
Well, I think some of them do change their tune. They just add to the delusion.
Yeah, but like if you say, I saw it, everything's going to end with an earthquake, or like this dude that Gare and I sat with, who the world's going to end
Yeah.
in October. Like I saw it. Sure as
Hmm.
shit, you're lucky that you heard it here first, basically.
Hmm. Hmm.
When it doesn't happen, like, okay, if I ran into him in November and I'm like, hey, bro, remember when you told me like game over in October? Well, it's November
Uh-huh.
5th. How you hanging, you know?
Uh-huh.
Yes, maybe they add on to it, but part of me is like, I would think some people would take a step back.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but that's like you'd think some people take a step back who like can bounce out of the delusion.
Right.
And I mean, I don't know what their if like what their diagnosis were,
Yeah.
but if we're talking about like low-key schizophrenia type of stuff, like
Hmm.
it's hard to jump out of the delusion. Even if we're talking about like narcissism,
Yes.
they just want to compound on top of what they're already saying. So they figure out a way to spin it
Yes.
that to them it makes sense, to no one else it does.
Well, and this has all the markers of narcissism for sure, if not a little
Absolutely.
bit of a schizo something, right? Because
Yes.
the command delusion, the supernatural visions, it could be that he made it up. It could also be that something was going on with his psychology, right?
Yes. Yes.
And we know that a lot of times in delusions, there's spiritual references anyway. Like it becomes, it can be overlaid with faith themes anyway. The
Hmm.
thing that I think is interesting is anytime I work with a client who has some kind of massive scheme that's not making any money, you have to ask
Hmm.
yourself like, who's driving this? And if you're making $2,000 a year, but you want to be a writer publisher, like there is a little bit of narcissism in that, I think, pretty
Yes.
clearly.
Yes.
And you'd rather take a side job as a gravedigger than like reroute. You know what I mean? Weird, a
No,
little.
yeah. No, I mean, this couple's, the situation's pretty nuts.
Oh, it's pretty nuts. So now I'm going to tell you just a little bit about Lori, and I want to know what you think because
Okay.
I think she feels drastically different than Chad to me.
Okay.
So I want to know what you think.
Okay.
Okay. Lori was born Lori Noreen Cox in Loma Linda, California.
Okay.
Grew up in a Mormon family. She married a high school boyfriend at age 19, but divorced shortly after. She married again in 95 and had a son named Cody in 1996.
Okay.
She worked as a hairdresser. She was a contestant in Mrs. Texas beauty pageant, which I don't know why it was Mrs. Texas. I don't know if she was living in Texas. I couldn't figure that out.
Okay.
She was also a contestant on Wheel of Fortune at one point. So there's
Oh,
that, right?
neat.
Okay, so in 2001, she married Joseph Anthony Ryan Jr. So that's another marriage. Okay, so her third marriage is to Joseph Anthony Ryan Jr., who legally adopted Cody. And
Okay.
then they together had a biological daughter born in 2002, and that's Tylee.
Okay. Okay.
Lori and Ryan divorced in 2005, and she accused him of sexually assaulting their children and ultimately won the majority of custody
Oh.
over Joseph Anthony Ryan. So she ended
Oh,
up with the
dang.
majority of the custody.
Okay.
Lori's brother, Alex Cox, attacked Ryan in 2007, claiming he abused Lori and the kids. This is the brother who's accused of shooting and
Oh,
possibly
yeah, yeah, yeah.
shooting Brandon Boudreaux and also
Yeah.
may have been involved in some of this stuff.
Yes, 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 yes,
You
yes.
know, they're a little too
Yep.
close. Like, I don't think my brother would kill anyone for me. I really don't.
No,
You know,
no.
it's a different kind of
I
close.
know. Yeah, my brother would be like, "You're on your own, girl."
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, shoot, see you at the court date.
Yeah, bye. I'll come
Yeah,
visit you in jail.
there's no way.
No.
So Cox served 90 days for assaulting Ryan, and then I'll come back to this, but it did later come out from Colby that he was sexually abused by Ryan. So the kiddo came
Okay.
out later, years and years later, and
Okay.
basically said he had been sexually abused by Ryan.
Mm,
In 2006, after the divorce from Ryan, Lori married Leland Charles Anthony Vallow. He went by Charles. In 2013, they adopted Charles's grandnephew, JJ,
okay.
because his birth parents were unable to care for him due to substance abuse.
Okay.
So JJ was born with drugs in his system, spent time in the neonatal intensive care unit, and he was cared for his grandparents before Charles adopted JJ.
Okay.
And they were raising JJ together then, Lori and Charles.
Okay.
JJ was also eventually diagnosed with autism. So that's how the kids end up involved in the situation.
Okay.
Now, one other thing on Ryan. So, Colby came out later and said that Ryan had sexually abused him. In 2018, Ryan was found dead in
Uh-huh.
his apartment from cardiovascular disease. They did investigate his death and it was not suspicious.
Okay.
After Lori's arrest in 2020, a recording surfaced in which she mentioned wanting to kill Ryan like Nephi,
Okay.
which is it's a Book of Mormon story about
Okay.
someone who kills somebody else.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know much about the Book of Mormon.
But this idea of like wanting to kill a partner may have gone all the way back to Ryan. And then we believe she was involved in the death of Charles,
Hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what are you thinking? This is how they ended up right before they meet, right?
Yeah.
Right before they meet. So, Chad's married with 5 kids, moved to Idaho.
Uh-huh.
Lori married to Charles,
Yes.
raising JJ. And
Yes.
Colby's kind of grown.
Yeah.
Okay. And Tylee, and raising Tylee.
Okay.
Okay. So
I feel
JJ's,
like I need like the genogram.
I know. Well, here's how you think about it. Colby was, had a different dad.
Okay.
Tylee had Joseph Anthony Ryan was her dad.
Yeah.
JJ was not super related to Charles at all, wasn't related to Lori at all. It was the grandnephew of Charles, who
Okay.
they
Okay.
just raised. So they weren't like biological siblings or anything.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. None of those 3 were full biological siblings.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like pure insanity.
Yeah, this is a lot. I mean, I'm not gonna
If
lie.
your family tree or your genogram, and y'all who don't know what a genogram is, just Google it. Um, if your genogram looks like this, it's just pure chaos.
Well, and also if you go on a date with someone and they lead with, I've been married 4 times, 5 times.
Yeah,
Red
bye.
flag. Now maybe they are just the unluckiest soul on the face of the earth. And you can have coffee with them. There's nothing against having coffee with them. But I would like slow your roll.
Hmm.
It's at least a yellow flag. For me, it'd be a red flag, but there are people out there who, have gone through some things. That's okay. But 5 marriages?
I mean, five's a lot. And here's the thing.
5's a lot.
I mean, yeah. Anyway.
I always tell people one of the best ways to know if you are starting to date a reasonable human being is if you ask them about a divorce, like if they're post-divorce, and
Yes.
they can say, you know what, here's what went wrong, and support
Yes.
them.
And they
I'm
focus
like,
on them.
yes, there you go.
If they say they're crazy,
Yes.
run.
Run. That's a red flag.
Run.
That is such a red flag.
Yeah.
Okay, so we already have kind of this brewing narcissistic something going on with Chad. Then you have Lori, who has whatever's going on with Lori, right?
Hmm.
So in
Hmm.
2015, Lori becomes interested in one of Chad's book series. It's called Standing in Holy Places. So she starts reading his books and then gets more and more interested. She's listening to podcasts. She's talking to or listening to excommunicated Mormons about their radical beliefs.
Okay.
In October of 2018, she attended an event where she met Chad for the first time. And the event was called Preparing the People, which preparing a people. Oh,
Uh-huh.
so stressful. Even the name, I'm like, nope, immediate no. Not
Yep.
signing up for this, not going. But Chad was, involved in this event.
Mm-hmm.
This couple that Lori went with, Melanie Gibb and Zulema Pastines, both said Lori was really flirtatious, like really, really flirtatious with Chad at the conference. Chad claimed to Lori that they had been married in multiple previous lifetimes. This also feels like something both people would know, but what do I know? He's like, hey, babe, we've been married in multiple previous lifetimes. And she's like, oh, fascinating. They started communicating privately
Okay.
afterwards.
Okay.
After their initial meeting, Lori's husband went on a business trip, giving her the opportunity to hold a quote, small overnight gathering at her home. Chad and Gibb were among the attendees, with Chad
Okay.
captivating Lori and the group by sharing his Mormon influenced but unique beliefs.
Okay.
Lori gets super attached to Chad and his teachings, and they become lovers.
Hmm.
Flash to December. So that's in October. They meet in October of 2018. By December, they're lovers, and she's appearing with him on the Preparing a People podcast episode, Time to Warrior Up.
Huh.
The two were featured in several other episodes. So now they're starting to be kind of a headlining duo in this Mormon culture. But remember, she's still married. He's also married.
Oh my gosh.
They're both married, but they're starting to actually have a bit of a following in this religious whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a group starts to form around Chad, which means it's also forming around Lori,
Okay.
and they call it Church of the Firstborn, and Chad was the leader.
Okay.
The group included Lori's niece, remember Brandon Boudreaux who gets shot?
Yeah. Yeah.
Lori's niece is in the group, Melanie Boudreaux, Gib Cox, and Cox, the brother,
Uh-huh.
and the Pastinas couple who went to the conference.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Um, Gib also co-hosted a radical podcast with Lori. So I'm going to try to find this dumbass podcast from whenever, and I want to listen to an episode of it. I'm going to find it.
It'd be interesting too.
I want to know what she's saying.
Uh-huh.
Don't you just wonder what she was putting out there? I want to
Yes.
I want to know what she
With
was thinking.
all these people, I wonder what they're putting out there.
So here's what I want to share with you. Okay, buckle up. This is what they believed. Now, I want to caveat this by saying people believe all different things.
Okay.
So I don't want to like judge the beliefs per se. However, some of these beliefs are pretty intense and fueled their behavior,
Yeah.
right? And remember, this is the Church of Jesus Christ of Chad Vallow, right? So like this is his narcissistic creation that they're
Right.
believing in, right? Okay.
Right.
So they believed in reincarnation.
Okay.
That's like one of the central things.
That's fascinating.
He thought he lived in 31 previous lives on different planets, and that Lori lived in 21 separate lives, 5 of which coincided with his own.
Yes, that's part of the Mormon religion.
Yes, Lori eventually told her friend that she and Chad were sealed due to their previous marriages in their past lives, despite their current spouses still being alive.
Okay.
So the friend tells Chad and Lori, y'all need to divorce your spouses. Lori
Okay.
said they were not allowed to because of information they were receiving from, quote, the other side of the veil.
Yeah.
Okay. So then a bunch of weird stuff happens. I'm not going to go into all of the things, but basically, Chad and Lori have these names, different identities from the past. Lori
Mm-hmm.
thought she was the great grandmother of Joseph Smith,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the wife of the prophet Moroni.
Uh-huh.
Um, Chad, this is a little ironic. It kind of makes me giggle, but He called past lives multiple probations, which is kind of funny because neither one of them are eligible for parole or probations. I find
Oh,
that kind of funny.
interesting.
Um, Basically, what they believe is that you have to get through probation to reach exaltation.
Okay.
And that, I guess, is a little bit more mainstream, but it's Mormon fundamentalist mainstream. It's not
Right.
like LDS mainstream.
Right.
Chad categorized people as light or dark based on his assigning them in affiliation with Jesus or Satan. So he had basically an idea that people were light or dark, and he could tell if they were with Jesus or Satan.
Okay.
Dark people are possessed by evil spirits. Oh, this goes great with Ruby Frankie. Light people, are his kind of folks and have some proximity to Jesus,
Uh-huh.
right? 7 women in the group, including Lori and Zulema Pastinas, called themselves the Seven Gatherers and would do castings together via
Huh.
Zoom. I don't even know what a casting is. I don't want to know. I don't want to know what the casting was. Because you see the 7 faces in Zoom doing God knows
Yes.
what. Oh my gosh. Okay. They also scored people on a vibration scale.
Oh no.
People with a higher vibration had special powers. They believed in teleportation, dark and light portals, all kinds of junk, right?
Okay.
So ultimately, Chad predicted that the world would end July 22nd, 2020.
Okay.
He told his followers he was guided by angels and could see hidden truths. And Lori claimed she had direct communication with God and Jesus, which I believe I have that as well. So well done, Lori.
Yeah.
Lori came to believe that she was an exalted goddess that I don't believe about myself with visionary powers and that she and Chad were destined to lead the 144,000 people, witnesses, who survive when the world ends. Zulema later told investigators Lori believed that as an exalted being, she couldn't, this is important, couldn't be held responsible for her actions on earth. So that's kind of this fringy belief system that is happening.
Right.
Okay. So in February of 2019, Lori tells Charles she doesn't care about him or LJ or LJ. She doesn't care about him or JJ anymore. And
Okay.
she vanishes for 58 days.
Oh gosh.
Charles files for divorce, citing threats to his life, as well as theft of his truck and $35,000.
Wow.
Lori told him he was possessed by a dark spirit called Ned Schneider. I'm sorry.
Both.
The dark spirit's name is Ned Schneider. That's incredible.
Ned.
Yes, yes, yes. So, and she told him that when the world ends, she would murder him if he got in the way of her mission.
Oh gosh.
So he's like, I would like a protection order on aisle 1. Like he's like, this chick is nuts, right? He wants
Yeah.
to make himself safe. He filed a protection order, but then withdrew it a month later, saying he was trying to make his marriage work. He got so worried, he changed his $1 million life insurance policy so the beneficiary would be his sister, not his wife.
Oh, well,
Lori didn't know that until after his death.
sucks to suck.
Sucks to suck, bro. Right?
That's super funny.
Isn't that kind of funny? He knew. And I think we do know sometimes when somebody has it out for us, you know?
Yeah.
So basically, later investigators found all kinds of craziness that was happening and things
I
she was
bet
saying
she
about
was
Charles.
I bet she was so pissed when she found out that the money went to his sister.
Mm.
I bet she was pissed.
Oh, pissed. She's like, why is this? I'm a deity. Where's my money? Do deities need money? Apparently they do. Apparently deities need money in their checking account just like the rest of us. So basically, Charles found out about the affair. 11 days before his death, he emailed Tammy Daybell to
Mhm.
tell her, hey, our spouses are cheating.
Yes.
Evidence later showed Tammy had opened and deleted the message and blocked Charles's email address. On July 1st, 2019, Charles told Lori that he planned to meet Tammy in person. At that point, Lori and Chad were communicating constantly on their burner phones. Charles went and picked up JJ at Lori's home in Chandler, Arizona. Alex Cox was also present, Lori's brother. An
Okay.
altercation occurred and Cox shot and killed Charles, later claiming self-defense. Cox said he confronted Charles about abusing his sister and retrieved his gun in response to being struck with a bat. And remember, this is now the second husband that Cox has assaulted
Right.
for abusing his sister,
Right.
right? Tylee told the police she witnessed part of the incident. So Tylee's the kid, right? The 16-year-old daughter. Told police she witnessed part of the incident but had run away from the house with JJ before the shooting.
Mm.
No charges were pressed. Neighbors thought it was like a pool party with loud music.
Oh gosh.
Cox told Zulema that he did not feel bad because he killed a zombie.
Mm.
Before his death, Charles's attorneys had been already working on some documentation because they were really concerned for JJ's safety and well-being
Okay.
because of his special needs. And Charles was also concerned for Tylee, but he couldn't include her in the filings as she was not his biological daughter, nor
Mm.
had he filed to legally adopt her, so he had no legal standing. So he's trying to get JJ out of this situation, but he can't get Tylee out.
That's sad.
Days after Charles's death, Chad sent Lori a love story in the form of a series of text messages. The story was a romance novel that told the meeting of James and Elena, the names Chad substituted for himself and Lori, and gave a detailed description of their sexual relationship. Ugh,
Oh gosh.
nasty. Okay.
That's a whole thing.
What do you think of all that? So Charles, he's done,
Uh-huh.
right? And these two are, you know, trying to establish a life together. Tammy may be in a little bit of denial. She like deleted the email and didn't want anything to do with Charles telling her. Even though I think he was trying to tell her but also probably warn her
Yeah.
because of all this craziness that was going on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The neighbors, so when they all ended up in Rexburg, Idaho, which is after Charles died, okay? Her brother also moved up there. Lori sells JJ's service dog. So Lori sells his
Mm.
service dog, and the neighbors in Rexburg notice that JJ's behavior is getting pretty erratic and that Lori leaves him outside for long periods of time. When confronted about this, Lori didn't mention that JJ was autistic, but told neighbors that he was her niece's drug baby, in quotes.
Okay.
Tylee was last seen at Yellowstone National Park with her brother, JJ, mother Lori, and uncle Alex Cox. She was never enrolled at any school in Idaho, even though her mother claimed she was attending BYU, Idaho.
Okay.
Okay. On September 17th, a doorbell ring video captured JJ playing with a friend. That's the last known footage of him. He last went to his elementary school on September 20th. And then on September 22nd, Melanie Gibb and her boyfriend David Warwick were staying at Lori's home, and around 10:30 p.m., Warwick saw Alex Cox take JJ, who was sleeping upstairs, to his bedroom. This was JJ's last confirmed sighting. On the next morning, JJ was absent. Lori told Gibb and Warwick that JJ had been misbehaving, so Uncle Alex had picked him up.
Oh, that's
Now,
right.
this is where it gets really, really awful just from a mom perspective, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
On September 23rd, JJ had an unexcused absence from school. The next day, Lori calls the school and says she's going to homeschool JJ.
Oh my gosh.
In the months that followed her children's disappearances, Lori kept collecting Social Security survivor benefits that those two children received because of the death of their respective fathers, because
Oh
both
my.
fathers had died.
Oh my gosh.
Hmm. In October of 2019, two Venmo payments were made from Tylee's account to her older half brother Colby with love expressing messages attached, which was the last time Colby had heard from Tylee.
Hmm.
When he expressed concern towards Tylee via text, he received responses from her cell phone indicating she was safe but too busy to talk.
Hmm.
So now you have a mom pretending,
Mm-hmm.
likely pretending, right? Colby keeps trying to call Tylee. Tylee's not answering.
Hmm.
Brandon Boudreaux and Melanie Gibb later said that Lori and Chad were convinced Tylee and JJ were possessed, sounding familiar, and had become zombies. Chad told his followers that JJ would die soon, only to come back as Colby's son.
Oh my gosh, what a
This is
mess.
wild. It's a wild garbage mess.
Also, why are we hanging our hat on zombies?
Oh, it's weird. It's all weird. Why not? We're from
Yeah.
different planets. We've had 85 lifetimes. Why not?
But
Zombies.
the different planet thing is like actually a thing in the Mormon religion. So that's like not that far-fetched
But
in
the
terms
zombie
of,
thing is weird.
but the zombie thing's super weird.
The text exchange between Lori and Alex during that time, they would say things like working on Z's, referring to zombies. So they were talking in some kind of code about the crap that they're doing.
Yeah.
We're almost done. Hang in.
Weird.
We got a couple more people who are getting murdered, and then we're going to talk about the whole case altogether.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, you hanging in there?
Yeah, I'm just breathing a little weird because it's like getting worse over here, but we're good.
Okay, good.
My brain's here, my voice is going.
Your brain is here, your body is failing you, but your brain is here.
Yes.
Okay. So remember I told you Brandon Boudreaux, husband of Lori's niece, was shot.
Yes.
So he was shot at from a Jeep while driving home in Gilbert, Arizona. The bullet missed Boudreaux's head by inches. He was close to Charles and Lori's home and recognized the Jeep as a vehicle that had been used by Tylee.
Mm.
The Jeep drove away, but Boudreaux got its license plate number to the police, who identified it as being registered to Charles Vallow.
Okay.
Melanie had become very involved with her aunt's religious activities, right? The niece. So the niece had been all up in it. They're stockpiling food, they're getting ready for the end of the world. She wanted a divorce from her husband. It was not yet finalized when Boudreaux was shot at.
Okay.
Boudreaux later said he was blindsided by Melanie's request for a divorce and blamed it on the quote unquote cult.
Hmm. Well, that makes sense.
After it became known that Tylee and JJ were missing, Boudreaux was convinced all of this was connected to the religious
Mm.
group.
Mm-hmm.
And he started filing documents in court.
Mm.
And he said the attempt on his life was motivated by insurance money. And the gunman was probably Lori's recently deceased brother, Alex Cox. So Alex Cox died before he could be held accountable for any of these
How
things.
did he die again? I feel like it was like a pretty,
I can't
I feel like he
remember.
got, I feel like he got shot, but I could be wrong.
Investigators tracked Alex Cox's phone data, and Cox had searched the internet for directions to Boudreaux's house, his address, and had been present near that house hours before the shooting. On
Uh-huh.
that day, Cox and Lori had communicated several times. Lori later made internet searches about a shooting in Gilbert, Arizona.
Alex Cox just literally died. It says, it's not funny. I'm sorry. I shouldn't laugh. Blood clots wedged in to the arteries of his lungs.
Well, that's scary.
That's a way to die.
Well, here's the thing. He never had to face charges, which kind of sucks for
Yeah.
the people affected by this whole thing because he was involved for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It just says natural death. That's wild. I feel like that was like merciful for him to die that way.
Well, isn't that crazy? So that's October of 2019. So
Yeah.
before this, before Brandon is shot at, okay,
Yeah.
in February of 2019, Chad had told his neighbors that he had a vision that his wife would pass away before her 50th birthday. So October 9th, 1 week after Brandon Boudreaux was shot at, Tammy reported being shot at in her driveway by a masked man with what she thought was a paintball gun.
Hmm.
The man pulled the trigger several times, but the gun was apparently unloaded. Police believed this was a prank and could not identify the man. 10 days later, so October 19th, Tammy was found dead in her home, apparently from natural causes. Chad claimed that she'd gone to bed the previous night with a terrible cough and died in her sleep. He said she was having low blood pressure, seizures, and negative reactions from homeopathic medications, though nothing in her medical records supported this.
Oh, that's wild.
Tammy's funeral was organized 3 days after her death, and a couple people in the family noted that it was weird that her funeral was that quick, almost like it had been planned,
Right.
right? Like you can't pull a funeral together in 3 days.
No.
Chad was not devastated. So the children are devastated, Chad's not,
Mm-hmm.
and acted in a quote business-like manner.
Uh-huh.
One of the attendees noted he was not crying, but was maybe trying to cry. You and I have talked about, we've seen that before, and it's like, there's no tears.
There's
This is
no
weird.
tears. You just
This is
look like you're
weird.
crying.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
Uh-huh.
Chad also mentioned in his talk that Tammy was feeling depressed. She was not easy to live with, and he called her lazy. This is like that pastor, remember, whose wife died, and he like got
Yes.
up on the stage and said all this crap about her. It's weird.
Yes.
No one does this. It's weird.
So weird.
So, with life insurance after Tammy's death, Chad received $430,000, which is equivalent to today like $530,000. So we got like $500,000 ish.
Okay.
Chad, no surprise, refused the autopsy. But when the body was exhumed, they realized that she'd been asphyxiated by someone else.
Which means strangled.
Probably smothered, strangled, something. She was, deprived of oxygen. Chad and Lori, no surprise, decided that Tammy had been possessed by a spirit they named Viola. I mean, listen, you got to say this about them. They can tell a story.
Can they?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's believable. I'm saying it's
Okay.
more science fiction,
Sure.
but Viola was the name of the spirit. And
Better
again,
than, what was the other one? Ned?
Ned,
I mean, Viola is better than Ned.
Ned Schneider.
Yeah, yeah. Viola is
Come
better than
on,
that.
pick something Latin or like old, but this is excellent. Ultimately, though, they just boiled it down to her being a zombie, right?
Okay.
Alex Cox's phone, oh, he's such a dum-dum, was located near the Daybell's residence 4 hours before she was shot at.
Okay.
It pinged in the same area on the night Tammy died. They found an AR-15 that matched Tammy's description of the supposed paintball gun.
Okay.
And then he also had done internet searches about using an AR-15 and trying to figure out how a certain type of round would affect a Dodge Dakota. So later investigators said that was not a paintball gun. That was a real gun and it jammed or misfired.
Oh my gosh.
So can you imagine this Max person's pulling the trigger over and over again and nothing's happening? And
No.
later she didn't find out because she'd passed away by then, but to find out later that it was an actual AR-15.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy.
Yeah.
When she was attacked in the driveway, someone else who was on a casting call, whatever that means, with Lori and the 7 women, heard her on the phone really, really angry with someone and calling the other person an idiot, moron, stupid. And she hangs up and goes, idiot can't do anything by himself.
Oh no.
Right. So basically, Chad introduces Lori to his children the day after Tammy's funeral.
Okay.
1 week after Tammy's death, he told Todd and Alice Gilbert that he'd found the woman he would marry. That poor neighbor is finding out more than they ever wanted to know.
Oh no.
Days later, Chad brought Lori to meet the neighbor.
Uh-huh.
The neighbor described it as awkward. They were laughing and giggling and being very affectionate. And Chad also mentioned that Lori had a daughter who had passed away recently,
Okay.
right?
Ugh.
So basically, more spirit stuff, bunch of weird stuff. Um, there were some welfare checks in there where people were starting to get kind of worried about the kids and all that kind of stuff. One of the things they found in Lori's web history was that she ordered a pair of wedding rings in August of 2019, several months before Tammy's death, and she searched for wedding dresses on the day of Tammy's burial.
Oh no.
Oh, I know. It's the stupidity.
That's so painful
And
to hear. It's
I
like,
know
why are you so dumb?
it's just a lot.
Like,
So
why are
they
you so dumb?
ultimately got married 2 weeks
Hmm.
after Tammy was buried,
Okay.
right? And they go to Hawaii and they're basically, when the children are, gone, they go to Hawaii and they're living off the money that Chad got from Tammy's life insurance.
Okay.
When they were searching for a house, Chad had written in the application that the couple had no children.
Okay. I mean, just like it's insane and they're dumb as shit.
They're so stupid.
They're so dumb.
They're so dumb. So then Alex Cox, you said he died of a blood clot, right?
Yeah.
Chad gives Alex a patriarchal blessing, which sounds like an oxymoron to me, but
Yeah.
whatever. Because he had no standing to give this kind of blessing in the LDS church.
Sure.
He says about Alex, are you ready?
Yeah.
He had helped him and Lori in ways that can never be repaid
Oh no.
and predicted he would have a future as a messenger of the Lord, called him a prophet and a hero.
Mm.
Isn't that just nuts?
You know?
And that blessing happened before he died,
Oh,
3 weeks before he died.
okay.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And Alex had told a friend he was worried he was going to end up being Lori and Chad's fall guy. So basically, the children's remains were ultimately found on Chad's property, like I said.
Yeah.
They were located in an area that the family had called the pet cemetery. It's where they had buried their pets when they passed
Okay.
away.
Okay.
They found that the remains were human and that it was Tylee and JJ.
Mm.
Tylee's body had been burned and her bones were fractured in several places. What they think, though, was that they tried to dismember her just to, get rid of her remains.
Yeah.
JJ was wrapped in plastic, but he had been buried with great care, unlike Tylee. They
Okay.
buried him under rocks and wooden planks. So that's kind of
Mm.
interesting
Yeah.
that they buried them differently.
Yeah, that is
Kind of-
interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. They had like a different thought process clearly with both of
Yeah.
them, with the
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
Tylee's cause of death couldn't be determined, but was ruled as homicide by unspecific means. And her DNA was found on a pickaxe and a shovel found at Chad's home.
Mm.
And then Alex Cox's fingerprints and Lori's hair were found on the plastic and duct tape on JJ's remains. So they left DNA
Mm.
on the remains. So, I mean, it's very clear that Lori was involved too. Because I heard when this first happened, a lot of people were saying, this is all Chad. Lori's getting pushed around by Chad. She's indoctrinated, whatever. Maybe that's true, but she and her brother were absolutely involved in all of it.
Yeah.
So I told you both of them were charged with murder. They were both sentenced. Lori was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Yeah.
And Chad was charged with the same thing, and he was given a death sentence. Now, that was in Idaho. They were then extradited to Arizona to face charges for the other murders because there were murders in two different states. Her first trial in Arizona starts on March 31st this month. And
Oh,
so it doesn't, I mean, it matters. It matters to the families, it matters to the victims, but she's already going to be in prison for the rest of her life.
yeah.
He was sentenced to death.
Well, good.
Yeah. So, thoughts. Do you think Lori was completely controlled by Chad?
No,
Because that's what Lori's attorney tried to put forward is, she was under his complete psychological control.
no, I don't believe that. I don't believe that because she has her own string of insanity.
Yes. Well, it's also interesting because one of the allegations is that Lori may have groomed and manipulated her brother
Uh-huh.
because he suffered brain damage in a car accident and his decision making was stuck kind of at a teenager level.
Oh.
So Alex was, and there were several people who testified to this, that Alex was really under the influence of
Mm.
Chad and Lori and that they had convinced him he was a reincarnated warrior of God.
I could see more of that.
Yes, that I could see. And there were several
Yeah.
people who came forward. There were not people who came forward and said that about Lori, though. It was really the brother.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could see the brother being a little more
Mm.
manipulatable. Is that a word? It's not a
No.
word.
Well, I don't know, actually. It might be a word.
Well,
Not
if
one I've
it's
used
not, it
before.
is now.
So one of the things that is really kind of interesting is before her sentencing, they were asked, they asked Lori to make a public statement.
Yeah.
She said that Jesus told her that Tylee, JJ, and Tammy were happy and extremely busy in heaven.
Oh
She said,
God.
Jesus Christ knows that no one was murdered in this case. Accidental deaths happen, suicides happen, fatal side effects from medications happen.
Oh
Direct
no.
quote.
Oh no.
So Chad's legal team says, oh, Lori, it's all Lori. She manipulated Chad through emotional and sexual control,
Oh no.
and that he should not have to face the death penalty. They
Okay.
were like, yeah, no, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry, not sorry.
Oh, the things that sometimes lawyers come up with. I'm like, I don't know if people are that dumb.
So you're reaching, bro.
You know?
You're reaching,
I
bro.
guess that's their job.
Oh, yeah. So the case, if you want to look into it more, and I'm not going to get into more on here because this is lengthy enough, but there's a lot of interesting legal stuff that happened between them and stories back and forth and the attorneys. It's a little bit Amber Heard, Johnny Depp. Like there's this very weird, like they're together, but they turn on each other, and it's just a weird thing. So it's
Yeah.
kind of worth looking into, but I'm not going to go into all those details today. So if you really want to hear them, let us know and we can do a part two. But
Yeah.
that's the essential pieces of the case. So what parallels do you see between this and Ruby Frankie?
Well, insane moms.
Oh,
I, sh-
yeah.
I shouldn't say it that way. Okay, empathy brain. Um, I think I mean not I think I see a lot of religious manipulation
Yeah.
and
Spiritual
um,
abuse.
spiritual abuse and like their own distortion. Like there's clearly significant distorted thinking, delusions, all of that.
Oh, yeah.
So like significant mental health issues in both of them.
Oh, yeah.
And then obviously the obvious things are like the child abuse.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that Ruby Frankie's children didn't die. They were
Yes.
pretty dang close, the young ones, but um, I'm thankful they didn't die. But the child abuse and the demonic stuff
Oh,
and,
yeah.
all of that of like thinking your kids are possessed or zombies.
Uh-huh.
It's just a really sad situation for
It's
both,
really
for both cases. It's just pretty insane that parents and moms can get so mixed up in that, And I think I hear more of these types of stories, not as much with the spiritual stuff, when moms are new moms because of postpartum.
exactly. Then this is so not that.
This is not postpartum.
Why do you think
Um,
the religious pieces tend to lead to these kind of cases maybe a little bit more often than just straight up murder suicide stuff. Like I just feel like and maybe it's a confounding variable where the reason these things hit the media is because they're so extreme and there's all these weird beliefs. But it just seems like in this culty dynamic, the beliefs take over and really awful things happen.
Yeah.
It's a little bit beyond just your standard issue, power and control, intimate partner violence. It's a little bit deeper than that.
Well, yeah, it's I mean, I don't want to like I feel like sometimes I err more on the side of like clinical mental health with these types of situations versus like spiritual warfare, but I think it's a level of both.
Mm-hmm.
Like you allow your brain to go into a place where um you shouldn't, I think, and on the spiritual side of things.
Well, if
And
you have a
then,
vulnerable brain to start with, we
yeah,
know that schizophrenia often goes to these exact places.
yes.
I'm not saying he was schizophrenic, but there's almost always religious imagery and themes
Yeah.
in some of these delusions.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think part of it I think there's a mix of things. I think you invite some crazy spiritual warfare stuff into your world, you're gonna go down a rabbit hole that you shouldn't go down,
For sure.
right? Like dark web stuff. And then also you add in a sprinkle or a um gallon of mental health issues and it's a pretty bad recipe, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I think so
So,
too. What do you do if someone in your life is going down this path? We've talked about it with cults before, but what if it's just on a relationship level?
well, I didn't have anything like this specifically happen, like, or this intense, but I have had friends back when I lived in Boulder who began to join a cult
Mm-hmm.
type of group. And it's really hard to talk, this sounds so terrible, talk some sense into the situation because
Yeah.
there's so much manipulation and it happens so quickly,
Yeah.
you know?
Because
So
how did you
some
talk to them? Because you've mentioned them before when we did the
the
the cold
cult stuff.
episode, the drinking the what was it? Flavor Aid episode where we talked
Yeah.
about all that stuff. But what kinds of things did you tell them and did it have any impact?
I don't specifically remember what I told them, but I think I just got really curious
Yeah.
around what their beliefs were.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to figure out like, is this a cult? What is happening? Is this just a really selective group, which is culty anyway?
Hmm.
But I mean, I think I just got really curious, and then some of the feedback I would give surrounded more of like, a church shouldn't be so selective, and it shouldn't lean into like who's evil, who's not evil. Like that's not really, like we're not God. We don't like determine who's
Mm-mm.
going to hell or not. And
Right.
that's kind of what this group was doing that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Um, and unfortunately, like because it can happen so quickly, you just have to set up really strong boundaries. And
Yeah.
sadly, I'm no longer friends with any of those individuals. And the friendship ended pretty quick the deeper they got. But the thing is it's not that I ended the friendship. I still wanted to stay in their life
Hmm.
with distance and boundaries.
Yeah.
But once someone kind of joins into stuff like that, like they're the ones who kind of make the call,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
No, I think you're right about that. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
One time Garrett and I, this was amazing. We were at the Louisville uh like summer, I don't know if it's the art fair or something, but they have that cute little downtown in Louisville.
Yeah.
And I'm walking with Garrett and Eric, and we're walking down the thing, and I see the Scientologists. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so I'm sorry if I'm offending you if you're a Scientologist. I'm also not sorry, whatever. But the Scientologists were there, and I was like, "Oh, bet this is going to be fascinating, right?" So
Yeah.
I wander over. They immediately like circled me. They were trying to separate me from Gare. to try to talk to me. And I'm like, oh, honey, you're barking up the wrong tree. But I was just really enjoying myself. So they hooked Garrett up to this like stress thing.
Yes,
You
yes,
know what I'm
yes,
talking about? It's like the metal things that go whatever.
yes, yes.
And he's dying. He's like, this is so dumb, Janine. And I'm just like eating an ice cream cone and living my best life.
You're like,
And
please keep going.
every time I walked over to him, the metal things went, woo! You know, like I was stressing him out, which could be true. I don't know. I don't know what they're measuring. Heart rate, who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah.
But Eric and Garen and I talked for a while about how they were trying to divide and conquer there for a minute. And I was thinking, like, how bizarre that a group like that would have a table at the Louisville, like, street fair that they would, I mean, I don't know who approved that, but whatever, you know. But if you're a really vulnerable person and they were very nice and persuasive young people, you know, I mean, I could see how people kind of get swept up into this, you know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which is just really scary.
It is scary.
I think it's scary, you know. And
Yeah,
there's a lot of vulnerable people in the world who are just trying to belong somewhere,
yeah,
somehow,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Well, my friend, thanks for
Mm.
listening and powering through even when you don't feel good.
It's all good.
And we're going to move on from terrible parents
Yeah, crazy
next
moms.
month. Yeah, from these moms that just cannot be managed.
I know
Unmanageable moms.
it's funny that we went on a mom route this month.
We did. Sometimes that happens. We start looking into cases and we end up with a theme we weren't going for.
Yeah, it's probably because our algorithms sets us up
You
for
know
it.
what? I'll bet you it's exactly what it is.
Hmm.
Ah,
I
well,
know.
buddy, thanks for coming along with us. We'll see you next time.
As always.
Bye, forensic friends. I'm Janine.
And I'm Nat.
And as always, thanks for listening and join us next week for more crime, psychology, and heart.